Planning Commission, now in session.
David Reed.
Here.
John Hutchings.
Here.
John Best.
Here.
Kirby Rocker.
Yes, sir.
Lindsey Phillips. Gerald Wood.
Here.
Rick Lawrence.
Here.
You guys hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. Michael Parker. Here. George Larcher, I'm here. Michael Clark. Here.
Okay. First on the agenda is approval of the January 7th, 2026 special meeting. Is there any additions, deletions, or corrections you need to make? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next is January 21st, 2026 special meeting. Any additions, deletions, or corrections need to be made to it? Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept?
Can we discuss this?
We're not there yet. No, we're doing the special meeting.
Gotcha.
Minutes.
Sorry.
So you did the January 7th first, and now you're doing the other stuff.
Right.
I was actually.
Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll motion.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
New business, data center zoning text amendment, proposal draft 3, discussions. Now, I think what we'll do tonight, we'll start out with the corrections or additions that George added from our last meeting. And then after we get through that, we'll open it up. Whatever section anybody wants to discuss, we'll go from there, as opposed to starting people to do it. So the first one, sensitive use. He added some language to the bottom. What qualifies sensitive use under this definition?
Yeah, so that was Michael's language that he suggested, and that's basically if you're a sensitive use and after the data center has begun construction or operation and you move next door, you're out of luck. The setbacks don't apply. So you knew it was there beforehand.
The higher setbacks don't apply.
Yeah.
Minimum bid.
Correct. The 200 is, as currently drafted, the 200 would apply, not the 350.
Correct.
Okay. You okay with
Yeah, I
that?
don't see a problem once if you're moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of legal precedence for that going back over 100 years, where you can't move to like a nuisance and then expect to, be able to cite them.
Okay, the next change was on setbacks. Rick had proposed 200 feet and 350 from all property lines. I have a little problem with that. I think it needs to be more. We don't have a defined boundary line, and we don't know who's going to be affected. I'm not as concerned with somebody that's 2,000 feet, 3,000 feet away from it, as I am somebody that's got it up in their face. And I think with that language, with the language, the company can negotiate that down. I think there needs to be a larger setback.
Okay. Well, if you guys can't agree, then you guys can vote on it.
Well, I'll also add, I missed the last meeting, so I didn't get to set those, but I do think the 200 and 350 definitely has room for some improvement. And I think the 350 from property line, since it uses different than 350 from dwelling on property line. In other words, if the 350 is butting up against a sensitive use parcel, that's different than butting up against a sensitive use dwelling. And I think you can have some language around, 350, 400, whatever for sensitive use, unless there's a dwelling within that area, and it can be additional.
I think, I understand what you're saying, Michael. I think my concern with that would be is that right now, this is pretty clean. And keep in mind that if you're looking at a house that's on the sensitive use, that's 50 feet from its property line, okay? Because it's not going to be, generally speaking, it's not going to be right on the property line. What you're really looking at is, in effect, a 400-foot setback. See what I'm saying?
Just 350 from the property line, if they're already 50 foot off of their property line.
Correct.
At least.
So what that would mean is, in most instances, now there are some older structures that are going to be right up on the property line, but generally speaking, any new construction has to be, or since the adoption of planning and zoning, has to be so far back, unless they got a variance, from the front property line. So you're going to have the distance of that home from its boundary line in addition to the distance of the setback.
Yeah, I see that, but I think you're saying that, most generally, unless it's an older home or something like that, there'll be cases where that may not apply.
Just, I think you got two examples, Highland Heights, and you got a mobile home, residence out there. And the footprint is very generalized that it's going to be. 350 feet is not very far from here to Limestone Creek. Now, if we put something like this in these people's backyards, I think we'll have a bunch of upset people. Real good. All we have is these things are 60 foot high. How do you even block that at 350 feet? There's no way. So yes, I'm in agreement. There needs to be definitely. And here's the other thing. Last time I was here, similar to Michael, I missed last time. But we discussed that we're going to create a 2,000 acre industrial park. Well, whoever this is, this undisclosed business, if they can't back off their property line at least 1,000 feet, something's wrong. They got 2,000 acres to work with.
Well, I understand what you're saying, Kirby. I think that goes back to, and y'all can put the setbacks wherever you want. I'm not advocating one way or the other. I think that keep in mind that the higher you make the setback, I think the project engineer said at the hearing, the higher you make the setback, the more acreage they're going to need.
All right, and that brings up, if we can open this up for discussion.
Sure.
That's what bothers me. We got this 2,000 acre footprint, but we don't know exactly where it's going to go. So we're going to rezone this area, wherever it is. Well, we said, well, we don't like your zoning, we want to go over here. So what we're going to do, just go over and rezone another? I think we're getting the cart before the horse, I really truly do.
Well, this is the amendment.
Yeah, this is the
This is the
I
amendment.
know.
This is a framework.
So tell me where I'm wrong here.
This is the framework for,
But if this company says, hey, I want to go over there to get this setback, we're going to go and zone some more land.
no, when the text or the map amendment comes in, they'll have to draw a boundary line then.
So that makes your point mute.
I don't think so. I don't think so because theoretically, they're going to apply to rezone. So we're to reiterate the process here. This is the text amendment, and once, assuming you all recommend that the local legislative bodies adopt a text amendment, this is going to be the rules under which anyone who wants to create a data center has to operate. Okay? And that developer is going to have to determine if they can make it happen within the framework that you all have adopted. Or that you all have recommended, and that I keep saying that the local legislative bodies adopt ultimately, whether they adopt it with changes or whatever. And then they have to apply for a map amendment, okay? And assuming that they get enough people who agree to sell them their land, they can make they can apply to have as big of a map amendment area
Correct.
as they think they need. Now, they can't force people to sell their land to them. But if someone is willing to sell them their land to add it to the project, then 2,000 acres could go to 7,000 acres.
I think it's important to, you just mentioned, I think it's important to know that whatever's decided in this text amendment phase is saying yes, potentially, to a data center in existing I-3 zones.
Correct.
It's not saying that we have got a map amendment. It's not saying we have an application. It's not even saying that whoever may be out there decides to say, I'm going to make an application. They may decide I'm not applying. It's just saying that, hey, we want and allow this to happen. The next phase will be, now we have a site plan. If someone does come to us, that site plan will open up to public comment. Public comment will see this map. They will see this diagram. How close is it here? How far is it there? What does it do here? And we can have all kinds of new discussions around that map amendment. That's the process.
Mm-hmm.
That happens and it has to follow these guidelines.
Correct.
Establishing.
So if you say 1,000 foot, then they may need 4,000 foot. That's what they need. If they can't get 4,000 foot or whatever
Acres.
acres, then they can't make the application.
Right.
Or they can come with us and say, we want 20,000 acres. We say, no, you're not getting that.
And they could always apply for variances for setbacks.
Here's what bothers me. Even though we're jumping through these hoops, I know, that there's people way past this area that's been solicited to sell the property. So I think somebody's getting a game plan together way beyond what we're even thinking about. And that bothers me. It really does. Because we were planning and zoning. Right now, it sounds like to me we're more reactionary than we are planning. We're trying to react to something that somebody else is telling us that they want. Well, look like to me, we should be planning. This is where it's going to go. This is what their setbacks are. And that's all we got to offer. Let's do it. Having the county divided, and they don't have an input in it, so we're kind of left here with, I feel like we've been thrown into the bus, I really do.
Well, that's why the rezoning process exists, is they have to convince you have to convince this body that it should be rezoned. And it'll be up to you guys to make a recommendation.
And I understand that, fully understand that. And don't think that I'm anti-this, I'm just trying to say what's best for the community. And with that said, I think we're in the mindset now that whatever the next shiny object is out there, we're going to go after it. And that can't be the case. We can't even send that signal that Mason County is just open for industrial development. I think I'm going to be wrong. We spent 2 years putting this together, this comprehensive plan. Are we going to throw it out? Looks like to me you ought to say, this thing's not even a year old. It looks like we ought to go back and say, this thing needs to be amended.
Well, it's a guide.
It's a
It's
guide.
not hard and fast.
Right, but there's nothing in this guide that talks about data centers.
Well, did you know anything about data centers during the process? I mean, sometimes planning and zoning is reactionary.
That's a big deal. It's not like signing or a next door neighbor. This is a big deal.
Yeah, but this is what the fiscal court is asking you guys to address.
So, council, I was asking a second ago about the 350 and 500. You tell me, the 50 foot off the property line and things. I'm thinking of a parcel that had 50 acres. And on that 50 acres is a homestead. But the homestead happens to be on the part that's away from whoever may apply for a zoning change. Mm-hmm. The part closest to that is just land.
Mm-hmm.
That would be 350 from that land.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's flipped, the dwelling was up against that, that's where I think the 500 at least needs to come into effect because the dwelling is forward facing to the project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to make. I'm not talking about 50 foot. I'm not talking about this. I'm thinking that we probably ought to say, if there's a dwelling as part of the sensitive structure that's within the 350 feet or whatever, it should be 500 foot or so from that dwelling.
And I think you could do it that way. It's just, it's gonna add another line in it. But that's nothing that can't be worked.
You know, at least 500 feet from all property line for properties on which a sensitive use that includes a dwelling such as single family, duplex, multifamily dwelling, townhouse, condominium, boarding home, group homes, etc. You extend that. And I think that's where that other, it's a little bit, it adds another complexity to that, but it's not just a want 350. They're not a single family home, and as you mentioned earlier, people's backyard, we need to have, if there's a dwelling there, it's a little different than the back end of my farm. It's where I lay my head every night.
I understand. The struggle I'm having is, I could make it 1,000 feet.
Yeah, I think Rick just.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I'm just saying I would agree with the 500-foot number that Michael's come up with. That seems appropriate.
Okay. Well, my struggle here is I can make it, or recommend 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet.
Yeah.
But then I argue with myself on, we spent all that time, most of it on protected farmland. So that's just going to take more farmland away from what we already are going to lose.
And I think
And
that's
that's the struggle I'm having.
That's the balance.
It's not I want to give them as much as I can, but also we heard them speak at 10 forums that they want to protect the farmland. So that's the struggle I'm having with it.
I think it's important that we talk about getting our cart ahead of the horse. This ordinance is agnostic to any application. We're talking about someone that may have something in a location that many of the people here are concerned about. But 3 years from now, it could be another location in the county. And this ordinance will fall in that if that map amendment was ever granted for that new location. So we have to be kind of countywide agnostic.
Well, again, as a planning board, to me, we ought to have a 5-year plan of what we want the county to look like. Again, it just bothers me because the whole area out there is going to become an industrial complex. Unless, maybe that's what the people want. I don't want it. I wouldn't want to live where I live and have a 60-foot building within 300 feet. I would really be kicked off. And there's no recourse. There is no recourse.
I think a lot of it comes down to what the site plan may look like.
It'd be great if we had it.
But we won't have it. We're not even eligible for it because it's allowed to be.
Well, that's somebody's decision. Somebody made the decision that he wouldn't see it. And now, like I said, we've been thrown under the bus trying to make these rules and regulations, and I feel like we're just jumping through the hoops for nothing. This decision has already been made, and that's what I'm hearing. Why are we here?
Okay, so let me say this. Nothing is going to go through. I don't see anything going through if map amendments are not approved. Okay? You know who makes recommendations on map amendments? You all. That's not to say that your decision can't be overridden, but these are the rules under which we play. These are the rules that have been in place, that have been adopted by the county. If we were in Fleming County, there wouldn't be any of this.
Exactly.
Developer could just put it wherever they want.
Exactly. So we have got a governing body that we're trying to do what's right for who? The people that are. So we don't get a second advantage here.
We don't get second at bats at pretty much anything in life, Kirby.
Okay. All right. But, explain this to me, something we haven't talked about, and we're getting a little bit away from there. Tell me, layman's term, what conditional use permit.
So a conditional use permit means that, so every piece of property in the county is zoned a certain way. And within that zone, certain uses, and I say uses, U-S-E-S, is in the way the land is used. Certain uses are either, a use can either be permitted, conditional, or prohibited. Okay? Every square mile in the county is zoned a certain way. And we've got a chart of uses that says that for each parcel of ground, you can do this, you can't do that, and you might be able to do this under certain conditions. Okay? In the ordinance, there's a grid, and all the uses on it, and all the zones, and it'll either say P for permissive, C for conditional, or X for prohibited. And so if something is a conditional use, then that means that the person who wants, or entity who wants to use their property in that way, under our zoning ordinance, has to apply to either the city board of adjustment, if it's in the city, or the county board of adjustment, if it's in the county, for a conditional use permit to be able to use their property under those, in the way that they want to use it. And you have a public hearing. And the board of adjustment either says, yes, with these conditions, or no, we're not going to give you the permit. And typically the conditions are related to, there's a stock condition that the board of adjustments typically adopt that say the use will follow all relevant and applicable federal, state, and local regulations. And a lot of times we'll go to hours of operation. What else, George?
Hardship.
How many people you can deal with at one time.
Michael, who initiated the original conditional use permit? Who initiated?
The person or the entity who wants to utilize their property a certain way.
So in this situation, this data center would initially.
Yeah, so if you all made this a conditional use, then I'm going to tell you, this is the roadmap that we've gone through. We've had a public hearing on a proposed text amendment. There's going to be a public hearing on any land use map amendment to make this possible. And then if you also make it a conditional use, there will also be a public hearing each time for each property that any developer wants to make part of the data center. So that would be 3 separate public hearing stages.
The issue with a conditional use permit is that most land uses that we have listed in our tables don't have accompanying regulations for them. So the board is using the public's input to come up with conditions, that is to say regulations that the land use has to adhere to. That's what you guys are doing right now. You guys are basically coming up with all the conditions.
Right. But we're vague on a lot of areas. That's the problem I have. We're vague. So look into that. Go ahead.
It's all right. Conditional use permits are, something's a conditional use usually when it may or may not fit in the zoning classification where it's a conditional use. If you have some conditions, it's acceptable. If you don't have conditions, then it's not acceptable.
Kind of like running a daycare center in a private residence in a subdivision. Something like that, or a pay lake in a zone.
See rural community.
Yeah.
So I think we're all kind of open to discussion to adjust that. Again, I have to be very careful that we're being agnostic of any application. I think it's, as council said, it's up to the applicant in the future to convince this body that what they're proposing is good. Right now, we're just saying, hey, if you want to come in here and be an industrial zone, here's where we are.
Well, do we have a recommendation on numbers?
Michael, what are your numbers that you brought forth at the last meeting? Was 500 feet or?
Well, it was brought up last meeting that I was not here, but it was mentioned 350 feet from property line for sensitive use. That may be fine for back end of a property, but I think if you got a rule, if you got a house or dwelling up against that, it needs to be greater than 350.
Yeah.
I threw up 5 just because it was kind of a round number, looking at some other stuff, but it could be lots of different things.
Yeah, and the reason why we did setbacks for sensitive uses to the property line is that some of the sensitive uses in the definition, there's not really a structure associated. Right. So,
and if you make it to the property line, that's going to be the biggest setback. If you make it to the structure, then that's going to make it.
A minimum of 350 on that list would be to a sensitive use parcel.
Say that again.
A sensitive use parcel, it's a residential plot. It's 350. If the residential plot had a home that was within 500 feet, it should be. I think the home should be at least 500 foot, so it'd be somewhere greater. Am I saying that correctly?
How about when we say distance from, are we talking about the actual data center, the actual center, right?
Talking about property
From
their property.
Their property line?
Be back to, if this was a data center, we said 500 feet, and this is property line, we'd have to sit 500 feet back.
in anything, data center principal structure or data center accessory use type structure, all that stuff would have to be whatever your setback is away from the property.
My reason is, if this is the data center, and we know that there's a house or something over here, from here to here, 1,000 feet. However you get that, make it sound right.
But I mean, like in my staff report, I showed the structure where if you had 500 feet, and then that structure was another 700 feet away from the property line. I mean, that's 1,200 feet away. That's the thing about making this a permitted use in I-3 zones, that it's going to be rural, industrial, and most structures, if it's a decent-sized piece of land, aren't going to be 50 feet away from the property line. They're going to be hundreds of feet away. Just depending upon the lay of the land. People put houses and such where it's most appropriate, usually closer to a roadway, but not always. And sometimes I've seen them where they're right in the front corner.
And we're talking about principal structures and ancillary structures, and I'm talking about becoming before principal structure.
I'm just thinking, again, I'm thinking about Highland Heights, and I'm thinking about that mobile home park. Anything, I would think, no closer, I'm talking about the data center itself, no closer than 1,000 feet. That's just me. I wouldn't want, if I lived up there, I wouldn't want anything any closer. And how you come up with that? So I can look out my window and see this 60-foot structure.
I think you just need to move the boundary.
Well,
You say 1,000 feet from the boundary line, and whatever's past that, add it on. So that if you go to the structure.
Can you repeat that, David? I couldn't hear you.
I said, I think it should stay to the boundary line. If it's 1,000 feet, 1,000 foot to the boundary line, no matter where the structure sits on their property.
Yes.
All structures?
Yes. Yeah.
Office buildings?
I mean, that's how it's structured right now, is it's the property line.
Yeah.
Yes, the way that we currently have it written makes it the largest it can be in terms of whatever number you all pick.
Right.
If you say it's to be measured from the boundary line, that's going to make the setback the largest, as opposed to the actual structure of the sensitive use. If you make it to the structure of the sensitive use, that's going to decrease the effective setback.
So talk a little bit about what you just mentioned, 1,000. Are you saying 1,000 to operations or to principal structures or to ancillary structures?
talking principal.
But,
Because they're tight.
car
Most of
shacks
them-
and parking
Well,
lots.
the car shacks,
Minimum
yeah.
I'm just saying that there's big.
Minimum setback is 96 acres, they're thrown away.
Center stuff.
That's different.
Proposed noise generator. They know what noise generators are. I mean,
So, you
what are
know,
they doing?
so you're saying principal structures.
Noise generating structure.
Well, the
We have verbiage in here about noise.
At property line.
I don't know.
well, and generators are ancillary, they're accessory
I'm
structures.
not talking about generator. I'm talking about what in that structure. The ones I visited, I didn't hear nothing. That don't mean anything. Evidently, there's structures that make noise. Other than the generators. Them generators, minimal unless they're gonna have to have an ice outage or something, but whatever's generating the noise on a 24 basis,
You're assuming it's from a principal structure.
and they, from what we saw or witnessed, everything's kind of tight. I mean, they don't have them sprawled, you know, all over the place. They got the generators up close to the buildings, and everything's pretty much compact, you know, around that major structure other than the parking lots.
That's not by design.
All right. Well, what do you guys want to do?
I think we're back to that question, you know, if you go to 1,000, that increases the footprint of the.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. If you're gonna go to the parking lot, I mean, that, to me, that would be ridiculous. So, that's
I mean, you know, I don't think 350 is quite enough to put sensitive use.
600?
I mean, I think it should be somewhere, and I think it's up to us to, if there was a map amendment request, say, you know what, are you good stewards of this design, and get most of it out of the way, it's hidden. And if we don't like that, then you say, deny it. Right? If you don't like the site plan that would never be presented, and it's too close or too proportionate to sensitive use, not proportionate enough, the orientation of it, you can say, you know what, I'm not going to grant the zone. I'm not going to grant the rezoning. Go back and redraw.
I would make a motion that we enlarge from 350 to 500 from the property line itself.
From a sensitive use?
In general.
So 200. Okay.
No, you're not saying, you're saying leave the 200 safe and do the 350 on the sensitive use?
Right across the board?
Yeah. 500 all the way.
Yeah, so you're not distinguishing basically between a sensitive use and non-sensitive use. And keep in mind, there's the language in there that if the neighbor doesn't care, they can reduce that
Right.
to 50%.
Right. That makes sense.
No, one might say that if we put these ordinances in and they were able to find, shoehorn into a local I-3 zone, 500 wouldn't allow that to be anywhere in our current industrial parks.
But we don't have a lot of vacant industrial parks. We have industrial park 4, that's one of the industrial, that's the city limits in Kentucky 11. And then there's the I-3 outside Dover. So I think that's really all we have. Everything else either has a building on it or and/or an active use.
Another dumb question. You mentioned the industrial park.
Would you speak up?
You mentioned the industrial park. They're sitting empty.
There's a heavy industrial one at the corner of,
I know.
is it It's at the edge of city limits, and, yeah.
Are we so far along in this planning and zoning that we couldn't sit down and look at a map and take that industrial zone, it's already map, and say, let's give and take, we're gonna give up some farmland to make this site eligible to meet this 2,000 acre criteria. Are we that far along?
I don't know if I understand your question.
Just utilize the industrial, what's already been zoned as industrial, utilize it and add to it to try to make this project work.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's up to, the applicant can apply for whatever they want. But I don't know that the city is going to adopt this. Because it wouldn't apply in the city. There wouldn't be I-3 industrial in the city. I-3 for rural industrial.
How's the industrial, how is it zoned now? It's zoned I-3, yeah, right?
Inside city, there's no I-3 inside city limits. The only I-3 I think that's vacant is over near Dover. Vacant in city limits is I-2 heavy industrial, and there might be some I-1 light.
Or could this fit into that?
That industrial park is not 2,000 acres.
We would add to it.
I don't know if there's enough land out there for that.
But we don't know.
I would be willing to bet that there's not 2,000 acres.
Would we be open to it?
Yeah, sure. If someone would ever make it an application, we'd look at it.
If the city is interested in passing an ordinance, either this or something similar, then it would open up the city.
I guess I'm per se, is that, you know, when we built a comprehensive plan, we looked at the land use development in the county. We, in our wildest imagination, I never imagined that an industrial development would be extending out into Mason County. I wish I had known that when we were drafting this. Maybe I would have been taken a little bit different. But I just don't understand why we're, again, I'm going to go back to this spotted zoning, going up there in 2,000 acres and rezone it just to meet an industry need. It seems like we ought to be saying, are prepared. If we want industry, we ought to be prepared that we've got this site ready to go. The zone ready for industry. But right now, it seems like we're, like I said, it's a knee-jerk reaction trying to make this meet this.
The fact that the I-3 rural industrial zoning classification exists means that this is possible.
Yeah.
Right? Because we actually have a decent amount that's zoned that, but it has existing land uses on almost all of it, except for the vacant one out near Dover.
Right. Again,
keep in mind, any applicant who wants to, so the way this is written right now, I-3 is it. That's the only place you can put one. And it's up to the applicant to convince you guys, pursuant to KRS 100.213, to say yes, to make the recommendation. That's the three-pronged test.
Right.
Right.
George, I put a motion on the floor. Did it get a second or a support?
Not yet, we're still discussing.
No. Nope, not yet. So I think the motion was 500 for both not normal uses, non-sensitive uses.
From the property line.
Yeah.
Isn't the whole point of the sensitive use recognizing the fact that there are certain things that require a larger setback?
Should go 350 on the standard and 500 for the sensitive use.
Well, that was kind of my point. It's going to do sensitive use. I mean, what's this distinction then?
What are you allowing with sensitive use?
Yeah, 500 foot.
Yeah, to simplify it.
I mean,
What if you did 350 and 700? Be twice as much.
You know, what's the justification for 700?
Pardon?
What's your justification for 700 versus 500?
Just a little distance. But
Again,
again, keep in mind, just a point of reference. Route 50 is from here to that creek. It's not very far.
350 is over a football field. That's 100 yards.
350 feet.
Yeah, 100 yards.
Again, it's from here, whatever how you measure it, it's just a point of reference. Now, if you had a house on the other side of that creek, would you be willing to, look at something like that?
Well, remember, I mean, I don't know how any data centers, how tall, I know how tall they can be according to this proposal. They're still going to have to be buffering and screening.
And to me, when I can get into that to me, that's kind of a band-aid on a really bad injury. It really is. That's buffering, and you've got a 60-foot facility there. He's up for a highway. He's up for something that is. This thing's 60 foot up in the air.
Possibly, but there's no guarantee of that. I mean, it says it can go that high, but I mean.
No, it's 75.
But it can go, that's what the I-3 height maximum is.
Again, I'm just trying to think, where would I be?
Yeah, it's a possibility. It's a possibility.
Where would I be?
Right.
If it was behind or something I had to look at. And, I would say, I'd be kicked off. But however, what you're going to have is nobody is going to want to reside. So even though you may have that buffer, in that building, nobody's going to want to build anywhere near that. So you're going to be affecting all the property around it, no matter if you think it's naive or not. But say if a person comes in and wants to buy 20 acres of my farm, but you got this data center sitting 500 feet off, they're not going to build. Who wants to look at that? Who wants to live next to it? So you're not only affecting he's presently residing there, you're affecting future uses of the land you plant. You see what I'm saying? Because who wants to live next to it? We got 3 areas in the county already, 2 areas. You got that landfill, nobody wants to live next to you. You got East Kentucky Irish, Mount Tuckahoe, nobody wants to live close to that. Now you're going to have an 8,000 industrial park, and nobody. So we're going to become an industrial county, and nobody wants to live here. We have plenty of jobs, but nobody wants to live here.
So, I think the responsibility comes on the applicant at that time, if one would ever come, say, can I convince you that if I needed 2,000 acres, that I can position it to the point where it satisfies this body? Right now this is a text amendment.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys want to do?
Yeah. You want to do?
Again, it's amazing. It's really amazing. It's really, and what we do is going to set precedents for how Coach Moore spotted. And maybe I'm not serious. I'm not serious.
Planning and zoning is a balancing of interests.
Exactly.
It's a balancing of interests.
Right.
And I think that you're thinking of all the right things.
Right.
I think that you're looking at the negative aspects of what that data center could bring. I think that
Awesome. Yeah.
Again, council, I seriously, I'm not anti. We need insurance. We need a data center. We can get it on our terms. Instead of somebody dictating that. That's the only thing. That's where I know we need jobs.
I didn't hear that last part.
We need jobs. I'm not anti.
Before that, I couldn't hear.
I'm not. I'm just saying I wish we could do it on our terms.
I heard that.
So that's it. And right now, like I said, we're reactionary. It's what it's planning. We're trying to react to something that's going to come.
Sometimes that happens.
I know.
I've done it plenty over the last 10 years.
But then, again, this is huge. This is big time. And I respect what happened prior to me coming here. We were wrestling with a little guy out there in 68 with a small business. And we took him to court over, because he was encroaching upon a different. What are we going to do with this thing? Who's going to be the guiding principle of this?
That's what you guys are helping figure out.
If we set a 500-foot setback and there happen to be 350, one section of it, who's going to tell them, you got to move? Nobody. That's how come I was thinking maybe having a conditional use permit, at least you would have an overriding factor. Right now, we have we had no protection for that guy out there that made flag, George.
So are you talking about the?
Yes, without listening names.
Yeah.
And this is he's compared to what we're doing. This is major.
It is potentially.
And I don't think we can just come in and just dish it off as if there's nothing. No, this is big time. This is big time. That's why a lot of communities are not buying up on this thing. That's a big deal. That's going to be a life changing.
So what do you want to do?
Billionaires.
Now, there's a chance we never see an application. If you put this in like 2,000 feet, you don't see an application.
Again, that's what bothers me. We may not see it here, but why do we have somebody from some country running around the county making proposition on land that's way out of this footprint? That's what bothers me. Somebody's got a game plan. They're saying Mason County is open for business. And they're going to abuse. Once they get the foot in the door, this is my problem. I've been through the master class. I've been through some of the really nightmarish things. Once they come in, who's going to control it? If we don't set the criteria up right now, we're not going to get a second chance. Oh, we made a mistake. Just that. That's my hard part.
Right, and that's what we've been doing. Part of the gig.
Kirby, if you all adopt an ordinance, if you all recommend that, I keep saying that, apologies to everyone. If you all recommend to the local legislative bodies that this ordinance goes through, however you end up modifying it, the developer still has to go through the rezoning process if it's going to go where you all, where everyone in this room thinks it's going to go. Okay? If they apply to rezone 2,000 acres, they're not going to be able to build on anything other than that 2,000 acres. Okay? You all have to recommend to the local legislative bodies that they rezone 7,000 or 8,000 acres if that's what the developer says they have to have. Okay? And you've got the ability to not make that recommendation. Okay? If you all only approve a rezoning of 2,000 acres, they're not going to be able to build on 7,000. Okay? That's what our ordinance does. That's why we have all these regulations. Okay? And if they try to do something that you all say that you can't, we can criminally prosecute them.
And we also have the complaint process and the arbitration process. Which the arbitration process is pretty powerful, which is why we put it in the system.
I have still yet to get an answer, and this has come up time and time again. Went up to New Albany, and they had made a strategic plan of where they wanted this development, and they did, and it's successful. I couldn't live up there, but there's people to do. why does this company or company need 2,000 acres? I looked at one structure up there, which I assumed was measured, there was no sign. It's huge. And looking at their strategic plan, it was only 400 acres. Why does this company need 2,000 acres for an additional?
That's for them to decide. That has nothing to do with this one.
Nothing.
And you can ask that question when
When you don't know, you can ask questions. And that's like I'm asking. Why do they need to?
It doesn't matter.
It's kind of like when we rezone something for commercial. We don't know who's going to apply for the business that goes in there, but it's commercial business. A restaurant can go there. What restaurant? I don't know.
We don't care.
And you can ask these questions when we have a rezoning public.
All right. Okay.
And I think motion is there on the floor right now.
There's a motion for 500 feet. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
But clarify then, 500 feet from the property line, and that's going to be sensitive or no matter.
And this is 500 for both non-sensitive. Okay. This was Rick. Second by John. All right, we're going to do voice votes tonight.
And this is not an adoption of the This is just to address this particular issue.
We have additional discussion for the vote. So it's 500 for both, right? So we're not making an exception for any distinction between sensitive use, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, here's the deal. If you vote yes, then it's 500 feet. You vote no, and it goes down, then we can discuss the separation. But right now, we get a motion and a second. We're going to take that vote. If people don't want to accept that, they can vote it down, and then we'll discuss more on separation, and take a motion and vote on that.
Okay. John Hutchings.
Yes.
John Best.
Yes.
Kirby Rosser.
Yes.
Gerald Woods.
Yes.
Rick Lawrence.
Yes.
Is that a yes? Okay. Mike Parker.
No.
All right, so it's 500 feet for both non-sensitive and sensitive uses. So are we okay? Sorry, Dave, do you want to continue?
Go ahead.
I was just going to move to the next thing.
Oh, okay.
But if you're making,
Before you did move then, my no vote was there should be distinction between sensitive use, and we should at least take that out of it.
so you guys just want to take out.
I think that wasn't there, but I think now if Chair will let me, are we going to make any distinction on sensitive use or not?
Yeah, I mean, if they're both 500, there's no reason.
Vote 500.
That was the only time we ever really references the use, correct, in this whole document was there.
There are additional berming and buffering.
Yep.
But yeah, I think
And also the noises.
yeah, it's in.
That's the reason I said that.
Oh, understood. Yeah. Okay, yeah, it's not the business. Yeah.
It just wasn't the language.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Well, I'll remove that. There's no.
But again, we're voting on this just now, but this can be massaged later, can it not? Or is this, we're not voting on this whole thing.
We're deciding what the setbacks are, and then afterward, like if there are disagreements on anything else in here, we'll vote on those. And at the end, if you guys are satisfied with these changes, you can make the recommendation.
Okay.
Right?
So we're okay with we're still in the setback, the neighboring property owner, adjoining property owners agreement. Are you guys fine with that? Somebody joins it and they want to make a deal, are you guys fine with that?
So that 50% now is 250.
Yes. Okay, then page 3, I removed, I basically just said the parking had to adhere to the entire parking section, not just a specific one for
Yeah.
and you guys have a copy of it.
Yep.
Community liaison contact information.
Okay, so I added that so that people know if they have complaints, who to talk to. And you can bring complaints to me. You can take complaints directly to the data center. It could be the same as the emergency contact. They could be the same person. But I thought there should be a community liaison contact, non-emergency contact.
Kind of reasonable.
Yep,
Yep.
I think so.
Yep. Development plan?
Yep, so I did, I got rid of most of that stuff because our development plan section mentions most of it. There were a few things that didn't mention it. So those are in other sections. So yeah, I just basically utilized, that was a Kimley Horn recommendation.
You need to send a colon after plan and emergency response plan as opposed to just a colon. Correct. Just colon.
No.
Any changes there?
For the development.
For the community liaison
We were,
development plan.
I'm here.
So, and then later in that section, I mentioned the decommissioning plan, which we're going to talk about.
Yep.
We'll just put a pin in that one right there. I made Michael's change there on page 7 that adequate power capacity will be available instead of is. It probably isn't there yet.
Community impact analysis. You added cultural and historical resources.
Yeah, that was mentioned in the development plan, I think, so that's why that's there.
I have a question on page 8.
Page 8.
Sorry, the environmental impact assessment. Should that be done by a third party or should that?
So what does it say? Yeah, it shall be prepared by a professional engineer, ecologist, environmental planner, or other qualified individuals. Yeah.
So we consider that person independent of the data center or the county.
You want to add that? Independent?
Yeah, I think it sounds good. Independent.
I mean, that's probably implied, it's just not explicit.
Okay.
Next.
11 decommission plan.
All right, so I just grabbed the language that was in the Kentucky Resources Council model ordinance for this. I figured you guys could just duke it out about what you want for the decommissioning plan. You guys said that you wanted to talk about it, so I put what's in there.
So I had a question. This performance bond or letter of credit. So it's like, is there like an expiration date or maturity date on that? Like, so the data center's in operation for 50 years. Do they just,
I think they'd have to renew it if it only lasted that long.
okay, so
I think, John, I think that from the solar part, they review it every 5 years based on market value of what they're going to dispose of.
okay. Okay, because then there's like, yeah, I didn't know how that quite works. So.
Which I don't know that language is in here. You know what that language is.
What's that?
That they review it and
I think it's the way it is in the solar. I think. Seems to me.
yeah, nothing to do. Yeah, the idiot box gets cheaper and cheaper, yeah, sure.
I think mine was pretty straightforward on that, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I don't know, like, the only part I have a problem with is the removal of all the structures.
And that's a lot.
Well, we don't want another Hazelwood, but we'd like to see the structure stay where it's utilized. But I don't see them walking out, and not making it a usable building again. In other words, they're at the end of their server's life and they're gonna close and they just, adios. I think they need to make it to where it's an usable, remarketable building.
Well, also it says, timeframe and cost of removal of all structures, foundations, conduit, equipment, interconnection facilities, and roads. Really, the only thing that would be equipment then. Because you would still want to keep all the other
I would think
infrastructure.
so.
Keep roads and conduit.
Yeah.
And water pipes.
Interconnection facilities, and if somebody's going to utilize it again, they're going to need power.
You can probably strike some of that. Some of that. Yeah.
Probably everything but equipment.
Where they have that stuff, diesel fuel.
Well, you can, and remove, we could add language for any hazardous material.
Yeah, any hazardous
Right.
materials type stuff that's removed. It's not certain either. Hairline nickel wire,
Yeah.
What else?
you make those changes there. I think that's pretty easy.
Yeah, but let's look at the rest of it.
How much third paragraph?
Yeah,
the
the third one also talks about structures, foundations, conduit.
Yeah.
And I really don't think that these sites are going to be revegetated and restored. I mean, this, yeah.
Remove that.
And then performance bond, et cetera, third party. Yeah, and then I'll add the language that talks about the bond review and frequency and value. And it's probably in the SES one, but it's not, I'll figure it out.
The next section is complaint procedures.
Right. So the first change I made was that you can tell that this was copied from the SES ordinance because there's still a mention of the SES. And then, so there's really two parts to this. There is the complaint procedure, and then there's the arbitration procedure. And this is in addition to complaining to me, and I take action either criminally or, my philosophy is to fix the problem. I don't really care that much about taking them to court, charging them to fix the problem. And if that doesn't happen, then criminally prosecute.
Yeah, and that's a point that I want to emphasize. We did get some communication about that. The public still has the ability to call George and say, hey, I think that they're violating the noise levels here. And George has the ability as the administrative official to go and check that out and, if appropriate, cite them into court. This is not the sole complaint aspect to this. The public always has the right to go to George and say they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And George, as administrative officer, has the ability to cite them into court. Okay? So this is not the only avenue the public has to make complaints. This is a supplement to that.
And really, for the complaint procedure, any data center owner really wants to kind of parses it to see if it's actually a problem or if it's just a nuisance complaint. Then they have to tell me about it twice a year. And complaints don't cost anything to make. You can complain to your heart's content, there's no cost to it. But if they ignore you, after 60 days, you can force them into arbitration. And that's where I renamed the fee the arbitration fee, so nobody's confused as to what that is. And, currently it's $1,500. I think that's probably a little steep. And I also added language that if you force them into arbitration and you win, you get the money back. So, there's You can complain to me, you can complain directly to them using that community liaison person. You get to run around or they don't do anything, you still think there's a problem after 60 days, which is pretty fast with the legal system. You can take them to arbitration, put a little, have a little skin in the game because it'll cost you money, and if you win and they fix the problem, you get your money back.
Could you explain to me, is there any other business, right in Maysville, or Mason County that carries this kind of cost?
Not that I know of. The only other thing that has something like this is the Solar Energy Systems Ordinance.
Just the what?
Solar Energy Systems Ordinance. This arbitration fee is actually, I don't remember where it came from, but it was a really good idea because it actually gives individual citizens the power to force the company to come to arbitration if they think there's a problem.
I agree. I agree also that 1,500 is way too high.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
It's where we're going, I mean, I think arbitration, like you said, it's very strong to kind of challenge that.
It's
We need on, it's not working.
It's not the only remedy.
Yeah. Most generally, if there's a complaint, we're going to you, and you're going to take, I was saying, investigate if it's a problem or.
I think this is more of an avenue if a private citizen is not satisfied with either what the company says or with what George does in follow-up. And this gives a private citizen the ability to somewhat force the issue.
You want to change that fee to what?
250.
I was thinking more 500.
Yeah.
And they'll get it back, but it's a legitimate complaint.
That's a third.
Here's what I'm concerned about. You keep it up to 1,500 or anything 1,000 or above 800. You're excluding people of limited means to maybe make a formal complaint. And they're just as effective as somebody who's got the resources to do it. I don't think they should be punished twice. Get it down everywhere for a reason.
Hopefully, it doesn't get that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because why? That is, if I've got a complaint and I see, well, I come up with $1,500, I say, well, just forget that. Then I can get it down there where I can at least support it. Don't exclude people because they don't have the resources.
No,
I mean, I think it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't get bad. We're trying to help them.
Correct. Is that a motion?
We're also concerned that it's just going to be an arbitration rate. You know, if it's not high enough, then it's just going to be a constant.
I don't think it's true. We don't have that complaint now. I mean, we have these businesses operating. We don't have this procedure. I don't look for how we ever taking those solar and these. Those are good. Well, if it's going to be in here, it needs to be reasonable.
I get that, but I still think people should have some skin in the game because this is powerful. You're dragging the company to arbitration. This is extrajudicial. This is a powerful thing. So,
and that shouldn't be just for to find out people that can report.
I agree. That's why they should.
So I'll make a motion on the floor that it should be.
Okay.
A motion on the floor for 250?
I've got a question. Okay. What's the difference between arbitration and filing a lawsuit?
Well, arbitration is. Do you want to take this because it's more of a legal question?
Arbitration, it's a semi-informal process, and it's not through the court system. It's somewhat contractual, and that the parties agree that they're going to resolve their dispute in front of an arbitrator, as opposed to it's a different avenue.
The lawsuit is another problem.
I'm not going to tell anybody that they don't have the ability to file a lawsuit, because I don't know if anybody's got the ability to file a lawsuit for about anything. How far you're going to get, I don't know.
Right.
But a lawsuit would cost a lot of money. And this is a powerful tool that doesn't cost a lot of money, and if you win, you get your money back. $250, that might be enough skin.
I support the 250. We don't do this, so.
You second it?
I second that.
Here we go.
arbitration fee, let me write it down. 250.
That's what we are.
Okay. John Hutchins?
No.
No. John Bess?
No.
Kirby Rosser?
Yes.
Gerald Woods?
No.
Rick Lawrence?
No.
Michael Parker?
Yes.
Okay, well, the motion failed. What else? Those guys.
Look at
500.
500?
500.
Second.
Okay, so John's, is that your motion?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, and Gerald Woods. Barb, you, John Hutchins?
Yes.
John Bess?
Yes.
Kirby Rosser?
No.
Gerald Woods?
Yes.
Rick Lawrence? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Michael Parker?
No.
Okay. Motion carried. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, that's, all the changes that was made from the last meeting. Is there any section that we need to revisit? Somebody wants to revisit?
Did you guys see anything?
I have 2 more sections and I'd like to ask you a question.
Okay.
Under the noise section, you have the time frames of 9 p.m. to 7 a.m., 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Should that be adjusted from 7 a.m. to like 5 p.m. and give more lower decibel for a longer period of time? I think 9 p.m. that's outdoor. I just think I think 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. is more reasonable on that side.
For the louder one.
For louder. 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. for the louder side.
Right.
And from 5 p.m. to
7
a.m. quiet.
I don't know, what do y'all think? The only reason that those are there is I took that directly from the city's noise ordinance.
Yeah, I just think on this particular one, I just think you should lower those and have more, have better quality life there.
Okay, so you guys can still, all right, what is the commission think?
Right now it says 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. and it's, I think so. That would be my motion to change that.
Okay. Second?
Got a motion? Do I have a second?
No, second.
Okay.
George, I have a question.
Okay.
You said you put, that's mirror image is the current city policy, correct?
Yeah, it's just a table from the city for receiving land use as noise limits. And because there are no noise regulations for the county, because most of the county is farmland, and no one's going to tell farmers how loud. Farming is largely exempt from most regulations. All right, so this was, so that'd be 5 p.m. to 7 a.m., 7 a.m. to 5. Is that correct? Michael Parker. All right, do a voice vote for that. John Hutchins.
Yes.
John Bess.
Yes.
Kirby Rosser.
Yes.
Gerald Woods.
Yes.
Rick Lawrence.
Yes.
Excellent. Very good. Michael Parker.
Yes.
Okay. All right, motion carried.
Are you okay with the decimal level?
Well, so it goes back to, it says sensitive use in there. What's sensitive use now?
The definition is still there.
Yeah, the definition's still there.
Doesn't pertain to that.
That's all right. The definition's still there. Okay.
Okay, here we go. And this is just noise, daily operating procedure. Let's let's say that we have a power outage, which some of our neighboring counties did, and these generators kick in. Does this modify to those generators?
I don't think it does.
No.
That'll be an
Emergency.
emergency.
This is addressed in the emergency.
Well,
Emergency work to provide electricity.
Yeah, separate generator testing commission activities, generator should be just manufactured.
Where do you have
It's only
Yeah.
Page 5,
Generator, that's required.
except, the generator, sorry, third one down.
Yeah, but again, it just talks about the testing. That's all.
No, it says, except for generators testing or commissioning activities, generators shall be limited to backup and emergency use only when a
Right.
primary source of electricity is interrupted
Right.
or unavailable.
Right.
So that means
But
if
again, my point is, what about this noise?
we
Are
have
they,
no,
you definitely are. So is it gonna have to meet the same guidelines
No.
as the regular? Guidelines, that's what I'm asking.
well, speaking personally, if my power's out, I don't really care about how much noise the property has.
You would, if you lived within 300 feet of it.
Well, I would know that that's not going to last forever. It's a temporary situation.
Oh, Lord. You weren't here when we had the ice outage, whatever year it was. And we were out, some areas were out in mud.
So what's the alternative? They're not allowed to use their generators?
The reason why I bring this up is that, speaking to the officials up in New Albany, I was asking about noise, and he says there's usually 2 times when they have complaints about noise. During construction, and he says once these facilities get up and running, they have to test those generators. And they're all on, just like with big running power. And that's when they get complaints. So my question is, if we have a power, if this thing comes to get a power outage and these things fire up, what kind of stipulations are we under? They can do whatever they want to at that time? It has been said that they cannot do without power.
Yeah, they do.
So we as a homeowner, we have to mercy of but you know, now they're the dominating factor and that we don't have any recourse. Again, we're in a situation we have no recourse.
So what do you want to do?
Listen to the noise.
What do you do? Because like you said, they're going to run these things if there's a power outage. You don't have any other option.
No.
So the hospital, their generators, other businesses are going to run generators to keep.
They're not gonna run 22 acres of.
right.
So what do y'all want to do?
This is one. Again, hopefully we can come back and address later.
If you want to have another meeting later.
I don't think, again, we've been dealt with this. For us to make a knee-jerk, have a knee-jerk reaction and try that, I just don't think I don't think we're doing our
Well, you're trying your best.
Sorry. A question, can we go on?
Yeah.
I have a question for you, George. In your minutes last time,
Yeah.
and I wasn't here, there's on page 3, you said there's a road maintenance agreement there for discussion of the previous meeting about construction traffic disruption.
Yeah.
You said a large volume of construction could heavily damage local roads. Do you have a description of that?
Well, yeah, I think it's in here. It's on. It's bottom of page 10, top of page 11. I think that was something that Chairman Reed was talking about is your concern with the construction phase, the damage and use of local roads. Because, I mean, construction, I've seen it firsthand, it can be fairly damaging, especially on a large scale to roadways.
There's gonna be a lot of heavy equipment.
Yeah, and you said, I think, with New Albany, like the roads were just dirty and damaged.
They were, they had mud covered on them.
That's the beginning, you know. At the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
It is, the beginning of the room.
Yeah. So going back to the generator and the noise, there's nothing in here that gives them a free pass if they're running a generator to break the noise to be louder than what we've already stipulated here.
Yeah, I don't think that it's directly or indirectly.
So I'm just saying, yeah, well, so they should still, even if they're running their generators as an emergency, they still should have to maintain these noise levels.
Probably.
We know that.
Because it talks about, doesn't apply to emergency alerts, emergency work, provide electricity, water, or other public utilities, public health or safety involved. So yeah, it doesn't really exempt it.
Right, that's what I'm getting at. There's no exemption for that. So it's still technically not all within that. The right emergency.
I think the way it's written here. Yeah. We're tracking.
So that's how they cover it.
Yeah. They don't have a get out of jail free card for the emergency generator so they can make more noise now. They still have to abide by the noise levels that they stipulated already in this ordinance.
I mean, you guys, it wouldn't be a bad idea to explicitly state that.
So so if we explicitly state that now, then good.
We need a motion.
Well, again, just to state it, but I still think we need some guidance. Where is it? What's the noise level?
I think that's
It's the, right there.
If you want that to be explicit, that is including generator usage during an outage.
Oh, I would be for that.
And that's part of their design decisions, that they have to meet those sound levels. All right, see, is that what you guys want? I don't think we have to vote on it because you guys all agree.
I'm good with it. I'm good.
Yeah, let's make it explicit.
David,
Yes,
exactly what we're changing.
I'm sorry.
What are we changing?
The generators can't, when they're running all those generators, it still can't exceed chart sound noise level that's in that chart.
What page is that on? Page 5?
Page 5 under generator testing required.
Noise level on page 4.
I got a question about design standards. I understand early on in the process we talked about there are 2 different types, and I think the one is better for the environment is the closed loop system that was mentioned.
Hold on to that thought. So really, if you read the generator and testing requirements, it almost seems like it implies that the sound level when they're testing, because you limit it, is going to be higher. Do you want me to add that testing of them also has to adhere to the sound levels?
But testing, you always put a time frame in testing too, 12 to 5.
12 to 5. So
Right, but I think that the expectation is that when they test them, it's going to be louder than the sound levels. So do you want me to make it explicit that emergency and testing, it still has to adhere to the table? Okay. All right.
yeah, you're right. Extended equipment.
Oh.
Practice how you play, right?
Yeah, they're not going to change it.
All right, so Michael, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
They talked about how, closed loop systems and those types of things. And I think when I visited both sites as well, when I went to Lancaster and New Albany, I saw a distinct difference in design. One was using evaporative cooling, and one was using a dry cooling technique. And I think the evaporative cooling, from what I understood, my limited experience, created that steam cloud of plume. Whereas the dry cooling did not create that. And I was thinking, if you have that, you could design it to the standard where using the dry cooling technique, you don't have that additional smoke plume in the middle of this area. You know, we talked about setback, but that could reach heights. And I think, I think we ought to look at making sure the design standard, applies. And what I've written up is, it is, make sure that they use a dry cooling technique.
There is somewhere in there, I can't remember where, that says like any type of humidity or anything given off should not go past outside their property boundary lines.
Yeah, but
So yeah, I still meant, I took it that still, even though it goes up, it's supposed to dissipate before it leaves. I understand what you said.
the one I'm saying, you don't even see it go up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're both there.
It's not visible. And I think that, if you're talking about large parcels of land which haven't had smoke plumes, I think if you had those smoke plumes, I think that'd be much better for the sightline.
Yeah.
What does everybody else think?
So, means that any system that recirculates a heat transfer fluid, heat exchangers, directorship, emergent, et cetera, are discharged and with no intentional discharge of water vapor to the open air. I have to put that down. I mean, do you like that thought process or not? I mean,
let's talk about the environmental impact assessments, that the assessment shall specify best management practices for preventing and reducing polluting emissions of the data.
these aren't polluted. This is the steam clouds.
Well, you're assuming.
I'm assuming they're steam clouds. So, pollution, that's a different assumption. And I'm saying if you can prevent a steam cloud and sight lines there, and it can be covered, and you can do it in a manner to which that's prevented, that would be a preferred method, I would think, in construction from a design standard. Mm-hmm. If you had no option, it is what it is. But if option, you can do A or B, and B does not produce steam clouds.
You don't think?
I mean, we've seen it done that way.
Well, I mean, this is what you're talking about. It's the first paragraph of the offering and screening. It says any user activity at or on a data center producing
Page 3.
Yeah, page 3. Producing air, dust, smoke, glare, exhaust, heat, or humidity in any form shall be carried on in such a manner that is not perceptible at or beyond the data center's external boundary. Well, I think that kind of takes care of that.
Not necessarily it does. I mean, if you go up and dissipate, there will be periods where you might see across several buildings, you might see several plumes in the air that might dissipate. What I'm saying is you can design it in a manner where there is no dissipation because there's no exhaust.
Well, I mean, I kind of think steam is exhaust and humidity.
It is. But I also think you can do it where you don't see that.
Well, you're not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be perceptible. Kind of beyond the data center's external boundary.
I'm not talking about external, I'm talking about if I'm looking over there, it's on their property, but I still see that in my sight.
If you're on if you're on neighboring property, you can see it's perceptible at or beyond the data center's external boundary.
So that it doesn't perpetually go up, and their property line doesn't go to the sky?
Actually, hold on a second. No, I'm wrong. When it says that it's not perceptible at or beyond the data, I think that means it doesn't meet the criteria.
That's how I took it.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, I think I would propose adding language where from a design standpoint, we would use the dry cooling techniques where that is not, you mitigate those types of.
What's the technique, David, or Michael?
Dry.
It's dry cooling
Dry.
versus evaporative cooling.
this is my only concern, is that I don't know that the planning commission should get into the weeds of telling them what their design should be, only what the outcomes should be. Does that make sense?
Well, we don't have how loud they need to be.
You're right, but we don't tell them what equipment, we don't tell them their sources of noise. We don't get in the weeds of telling them what their sources of noise is. I mean, we do tell them it has to be the most recent generated. You know, we talk about like level 4 generators or something like that, but no matter what, we don't tell them, aside from that, like, about their, like, what equipment they can use here, there, what processes. We just say, whatever you use, it can't be this noisy at the property. Does that make sense?
Well, I'm saying whatever you use can't be this visible.
Right. And so, you know.
So use a dry cooling technique.
But again, you're dictating what their process is, rather than what they might decide to use a dry cooling technique, but.
Right now they could, but the ordinance they couldn't.
I know, but I'm more concerned with the planning commission. I think should be more concerned with limiting negative externalities than
The issue
micromanaging what they do and how they get.
If and when an application would ever come through, and if and when this body would ever grant acreage to do such, you may have multiple buildings that have multiple smoke plumes coming off at multiple times. To create, from a sight line, you're seeing this in the distance, it creates another industrial field type of area. Whereas if you had that as a dry cooling technique, you look through there and don't see that. So you're seeing that from a much further distance. You're not seeing it. You're seeing smoke plumes that's creating there from miles away.
Right. This is what I'm saying. We're saying the same thing, except we're coming at it from 2 different directions. Because what if there's a new technique that accomplishes what you want that doesn't exist yet? We would be saying, you have to use this old technique. We want to use this old, and it's not going to happen.
So I think I agree with what you're saying there. I know what you're saying there now.
Right.
So if the 10 years now it's
because this is what
no cooling and there's no.
This is what it's let me find the generator.
But I think if we can mitigate the smoke plumes that are coming off it, because again, we saw 2 trials, and one of them was distinctly different look and feel than the other one, and the one that did not have smoke plume was much better, I thought, as a neighborhood friend than the other one.
Right. So what I'm talking about is with backup diesel generators shall be a minimum of Tier 4 or the highest environmental protection association industry standard available at the time of application. It doesn't limit, because if we just said Tier 4 in 30 years, right, so we'd be saying you have to use Tier. So we're limiting them on what technology they can use.
Well, then add it that, there'd be no, I think, precipitate at the boundary, it can go up and it goes away. You can still see it coming up. I think there's ways.
Right. And what I'm saying is come at it from, don't let that be seen, not here's the technology and the process.
Then I'm okay with that as long as it's not.
Not seen it. Yeah, I agree.
You agree with that?
I agree with that.
You have a recommendation for language?
Yeah, make it not be say he. I don't have that recommendation, but I would, I just think as long as it's strong from a design standpoint, you're using the technology, whatever you choose, that exhaust and steam plumes are not visible. I think that's kind of what I'm, I see what you're saying now. You can say use dry cooling in 10 years now, I can use dry cooling. It's
That's expensive.
Yeah.
All right, I'll find a place. Then I'll make sure there's robust plan.
Okay, where else?
That's what I had.
What else you got? Rick, you got something? What do you got?
No, if we all agree on everything we've arrived at tonight, I suggest we vote and send it to fiscal court and make them make their decisions.
Just to review. So these are the changes you all wanted to make. You remove the sensitive use setback and make the general setback 500 feet from a property line. Michael wanted me to remove replace a colon with a semicolon on page 7. Sorry, I'm what are you calling that? On page 8, we make sure that anybody doing the environmental assessment is a third party, independent, third party professional engineer and blah, 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 blah. You all wanted to me to add language for a decommissioning plan for periodically reviewing the bond, and increasing the value because everything increases. And then remove everything but equipment in the first and third paragraph, and add something for removal of hazardous materials. Remove talking about revegetating and restoring the land because that's not going to happen. The arbitration fee, $500 now. Change the noise time ranges from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. You wanted me to make sure that the use of generators, both during testing and emergency use, adhere to sound levels in the table. And then make sure that we can't see exhaust / steam plumes. And I'll say yes.
I think that was it.
Question about your minutes again.
Okay.
It's on page 3. Ms. Phillips, she asked where the erosion control and stormwater management types were defined. You said they were not defined.
Hold on a second. Second 7 minutes. Yes, this is the third of the way down. Page 3. Okay. Yes. So I'm fairly confident that the state has details on those. They're not defined in this, but they would have to submit a plan that talks about how they were going to address erosion control and stormwater management and how it adheres to more than likely state and possibly federal law. We have a little bit at the local level when it comes to design, but not a whole lot.
It's state and federal, excuse me. Section 404 permit.
So it is covered in state.
Yeah. And 402.
So then, they present that to you all, and well, it'll be a checkbox. It'll be a checkbox. I'll come back to you guys and say I'll probably make David Ford take a look at that.
So we can make a recommendation contingent upon those changes.
Yes.
And I wanted to mention this too. The first draft, Robin Rice took a look at it and made the language, as attorneys do, they pretty up the language to be legally sound, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to take this third draft, once I make the changes, give it to him, and make him go through it. I might also just pretty up the format a bit because you don't really have ones or numbers and letters. It's like, just dashes and stuff, right? So no substantive changes, just formatting and making the language in the legalese. That's an accurate description. Sure. That's how attorneys are.
So what you're saying, I think what I heard David saying is that once this company makes their plan, this is going to be included in that. It'll be part of the NEPA and all that, all right? Once the company submits a plan for us, all this should be included, correct?
Yeah, how they're going to address it.
How they're going to address it. So it should be laid out.
So this is for any data center that wants to come here. This is the process. So right now, we are formulating and making recommendations to the local legislative bodies for regulations. Okay? Then when that's adopted, and anybody who wants to come here, a data center, if they are choosing land that's not I-3, then they have to rezone the land. Then this basically says after that, they have to come to you guys for a permit to start development, and they have to do all this stuff and show us all the stuff that says in these regulations that we've told them that they have. I'm sure they'll probably have all this work done because these are usually massive undertakings. And they'll probably show a decent amount of that stuff at the rezoning public hearing. But otherwise, it's just, it becomes what we'll refer to as a ministerial task. As long as they check all these boxes, then they get their permit. And I'm sure it'll involve you guys where I and maybe some other staff will come to you and say, we're satisfied with this. The the community, what is it called? Community impact, that'll probably be signed off. A lot of different, it's like a major subdivision. Like there are a bunch of signatures on for water and sewer and for roads, and I'm the last signature. And so I'll bring that to you guys, say, here are all their plans, all the appropriate agents signed off on it. Some of those agents will be, people from local utilities, like, probably like EKPC, et cetera, et cetera. So, these regulations, these will apply to anybody, but this is not because of the specific data center. These will apply to any data center that wants to, any developer will have to follow these. It's the next step of the process with rezonings. That's when it gets specific to the specific proposal. And then these will apply to other things. Like I said, they'll have to come back to you guys, but it'll probably be taken care of by staff, where it's ministerial. We'll check all these boxes. I'll show it to you guys, and you guys say, permits, that's done. Does that make sense? Yep.
I like it.
Any moment. We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Who was the first one? Rick.
Rick.
Okay.
I've got some, Mr. Chairman, I've got some proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law, if you all are interested in taking a vote.
Sure.
Okay. In accordance with the Maysville Code of Ordinances and KRS Chapter 100, the Mason County Joint Planning Commission, hereinafter Commission, conducted a special meeting at the Mason County Public Library, 218 3rd Street, Maysville, Mason County, Kentucky, on February the 4th, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. regarding a proposed amendment to the Land Use Management Ordinance regulating data centers. The meeting was called to order with quorum in attendance. Commission members present were David Reed, John Hutchings, Kirby Rosser, John Best, Michael Parker, Gerald Woods, and Rick Lawrence appeared virtually. The following members were absent: Lindsay Phillips. After discussion of the proposed text amendment and upon motion duly made and seconded, the Commission adopted the following findings of fact and conclusions of law. Findings of fact. Number 1. A potential developer proposes to develop a hyperscale data center in the western part of Mason County, but specific details of the project are scant due to the developer choosing not to be identified or releasing much in the way of concrete plans to the public at large. Members of the public who made comment on the proposed amendment cited this lack of substantive detail as a source of frustration with the process. Word of individual property owners signing contracts to sell their land to this developer at well above fair market price is widespread throughout the community. 2. The Mason County Fiscal Court passed a resolution in September 2025 requesting that the Joint Planning Commission adopt text regulating data centers and incorporate same into the Land Use Management Ordinance. 3. In response to that request, administrative staff, counsel for the Commission, and the Mason County Attorney's Office collaborated on drafting a proposed text amendment regulating data centers. 4. Subsequent to preparation of that draft and review of same by the Commission, the Joint Planning Commission conducted a series of properly noticed public hearings regarding the proposed text amendment. The first hearing was for the sole purpose of receiving testimony in a presentation and question and answer format with Andy Schall. This hearing took place on December 3, 2025. Mr. Schall is a civil engineer affiliated with Kimley Horn in Central Ohio. He was engaged and paid by the Mason County Fiscal Court to provide information to the Commission regarding data centers. Mr. Schall presently works as a data center campus planner and has extensive and wide-ranging experience working with developers, municipalities, and end users in planning and developing data centers. He made a presentation to the Commission about data centers generally, offered opinion and insight on the draft text amendment, and answered questions in round-robin format, first from the Commission and then from members of the public. Of note, in Mr. Schall's opinion, the setbacks and noise limitations set forth in the initial draft of the text amendment are in line with what he has seen in his experience in Central Ohio. In his opinion, the primary consideration for the Commission to consider from a planning and zoning perspective is siting, i.e., setbacks, screening, and buffering, etc., and other considerations related to a data center should be handled by community partners and government entities. In response to a question asked in a variety of ways, Mr. Schall testified that he would have no issue owning a house next to a data center that was subject to a 250-foot setback. The transcript of that hearing and Mr. Schall's CV has previously been adopted into the record and is made part of these findings of fact. 5. The Commission then conducted public hearings for the purpose of receiving public comment and testimony regarding the draft text amendment. These hearings occurred on December 9 and 10, 2025. Local counsel for a potential developer, representatives from state agencies, East Kentucky Power Cooperative, a water treatment and sewer system consultant, a technology trade special interest group, local government officials and administrators, environmental special interest groups, local citizen groups, and individual citizens all were given the opportunity to speak under rules announced and adopted by the Joint Planning Commission prior to the commencement of the hearing. The transcript of that hearing has previously been adopted into the record and made part of these findings of fact. Additionally, certain written materials utilized by speakers during this hearing have previously been adopted into the record and are made part of these findings of fact, but other materials that did not meet the rules adopted by the Commission were not admitted into the record. 6. Written comment was also accepted into the record in addition to or in lieu of oral testimony at the public hearing. The written comments that were submitted timely and in conformity with the rules announced and adopted by the Joint Planning Commission prior to the commencement of the public hearing have previously been adopted into the record and are made part of these findings of fact. 7. East Kentucky Power Cooperative, EKPC, provides electricity to most of Mason County. Its Spurlock station, located on the Ohio River in northwest Mason County, would be the primary electricity provider to any data center sited in Mason County. The representative of EKPC testified at the hearing and informed the Commission that his company has been in communication with the potential developer for a while. EKPC has been proactive in preparing for this development, and it supports the project overall. Significantly, the Kentucky PSC recently approved a data center rate, or tariff, that will allow electricity providers to charge data centers all costs related to their usage and require data centers to pay in advance for necessary infrastructure related to their significant electric power requirements. Large usage customers, such as data centers, help stabilize rates for its individual customers, so local citizens should not see any impact to their individual utility bills should a data center come to the area. 8. Local government officials who offered comment at the hearing support the potential project. In their testimony, they assured the public that the potential developer is a well-known and first-class operation and it will build, own, and operate the data center throughout its lifespan. The potential project will bring hundreds of millions of dollars of investment to the community that will help pay for needed infrastructure related to the development, including the construction of the new wastewater treatment plant, substantial additional tax revenue to the county, and provide significant numbers of jobs during construction, as well as potentially hundreds of permanent and high-paying operations jobs once construction is completed. Further, local schools will benefit from increased taxes, and the developer will have training programs for students with potential jobs upon graduation. In the words of local government officials who testified at the hearing, the potential project could be transformational for the community at large in the most positive sense. 9. The majority of private citizen public comment received by the Commission was against the potential project and data centers generally. Most raised similar concerns. The proposed project will take 2,000 plus acres on the low end, and citizens who testified at the hearing or who submitted written comment fear that the project could take substantially more than that. Maysville and Mason County remains a largely rural area. Comments received by the Commission at the hearing lamented the potential loss of so much farmland and rural character. Further, hyperscale data centers are a relatively new land use, certainly unknown to this area thus far, and citizens fear negative externalities such as they have heard of in research from other communities that have hyperscale data centers like Northern Virginia. They want large setbacks, significant noise controls, and limitation of light trespass. They fear for their property values and potential increases in their utility bills. They have concerns about potential health effects from the various kinds of noise, both audible and inaudible, that might be generated by a data center. They have environmental concerns about wastewater, overall water use, and potential hazards winding up in the soil. Most testifying were offering personal opinions, but some offered testimony that claimed to be based upon research or opinions of others. 10. Jack Ammerman, design engineer for the potential developer, testified at the hearing. He answered a series of questions posed to him by the Commission. The present plan of the developer is to utilize approximately 2,000 acres, give or take, but the plans, especially for a project of this size, can change rapidly. Geographical features, setbacks, etc., will play a part in design and size of the project. The developer will take into consideration, in quotes, prime farmland in laying out the site, which by no means will be all concrete from border to border. The project will incorporate substantial amounts of green space and conservation areas. The project team is well aware of the underlying karst landscape and can plan and design around that geographical feature to make it more stable. The project will take community needs into consideration and will do its best to place noise-making buildings further away from project boundaries. And, to the extent possible, the project will place buildings close together as opposed to spread out. With a totally flat work area that is easy to do, but geographical features add complications. Additionally, the larger the setbacks required by regulation, the more acreage the project will require. So there is a trade-off between protecting prime farmland, minimizing the size of the project, and minimizing effects on neighboring properties. 11. The Joint Planning Commission wants to protect the rights of property owners who are in favor of selling their property to the developer, as well as protect the rights of neighboring and nearby property owners who fear adverse effects from a hyperscale data center. 12. The Joint Planning Commission has addressed to the best of its ability safety and environmental concerns in the proposed ordinance. 13. The setbacks and noise requirements in the proposed ordinance balance preservation of farmland by allowing the potential developer to use less acreage for any project with protecting neighboring and nearby property owners from negative externalities associated with any potential project. 14. The proposed ordinance further addresses siting, development, and construction of a potential data center in a predictable manner that promotes and protects the safety, health, and welfare of the community and balances the benefits of economic development, increased tax revenue for local government and the school system, and job creation with the protection of local agriculture, existing residential uses, and the existing built environment and historic, natural, and other sensitive areas. Conclusions of law. 1. That the Mason County Joint Planning Commission is empowered by KRS Chapter 100 and the Code of Ordinances to conduct public hearings regarding land use matters and are, in fact, required by law to conduct such hearings. 2. That pursuant to KRS 100.201, the Mason City Commission and the Mason County Fiscal Court are empowered to enact land use regulations in conjunction with the comprehensive plan. So, if you want to make a recommendation, you can utilize those findings of fact and conclusions of law.
You said a lot there. Yeah, right. Just one. Is there any way that we can have that and ruminate over it? You said a lot.
It's fine with me.
Now, a lot of them that I don't really agree with. I don't know who was talking about the economic impact that it's going to have. Was it EKP?
I'd say EKP and local officials who spoke at the public hearing.
You all may have seen it. I have yet to see the exact dollars laid out.
Yeah, I don't think that exact dollars were laid out.
Well, it's an estimate. Just an estimate.
No.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, you don't. Let me ask you this. Let's say again, another unknown. Is this company going to get a tax incentive? If so, how many years?
There is. That will be part of the community impact
Upon application.
Yeah,
Yes.
again, it's just, you're talking about the economic benefit, right? We've been told that. This is in writing. I mean, just an estimate, just, you know, we're going to give them 20 years, 30 years of taxes. Well, how are they going to make up for that? It's going to be construction through the 40 employees that's going to be hired. How many years are, what's the economic benefit? That's what I'm asking.
Right. You're going to see that.
But we have not seen that today.
No.
And it's part of the application, but it's part of the finding of fact.
Well, it's part of the finding of fact that we've been told that. We all have been told. As a tester, you know, it was during the public hearing, so it was tested.
Rick's made the motion to accept with the language change. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
How should we handle that with the findings of fact of what we have to accept, what we have to approve those separately?
We've already approved all of them.
Well, I think that,
So we have to, I guess.
I think the motion could be made to make a recommendation with these findings of fact.
Yeah.
For, Rick, is that what you want to do? What?
Can't hear you.
You're going mute. Bottom left.
I would move that Michael's report be included in my amended motion.
Yeah, the findings.
I'll second. So.
Second. All right. Voice vote. John Hutchings.
Yes.
Tom Best.
Yes.
Kirby Rosser.
No.
Gerald Woods.
Yes.
Rick Lawrence.
Yes.
Michael Parker.
Yes.
All right, you got it. Yes. Not including.
Future meetings, I guess, is that?
That was just there in case because you can't talk about something not on the agenda.
Okay, so this goes back to the fiscal court. Just gotta understand the process, though.
Yeah, so the fiscal court, this is an ordinance, the fiscal court needs 2 readings of it to adopt it.
Okay.
As I recall, I don't think they vote until the second reading. So
Okay.
they'll read a synopsis at the first reading,
Yes.
and then they'll vote at the second reading.
And if they vote against it, what happens?
Then-
I'm just being, I just want to know.
Do these regulations don't already got?
Okay, and do they go back to us again, or, I mean, or,
They can make edits.
how does that work?
So there's no due process here because there's no applicant, you know, that's why it says in the regulations, the only source of, the only source of, for proposing something like this is the planning commission itself or any relevant legislative bodies, right?
Okay,
There is no applicant here, so there's no due process. You guys could make this recommendation and it just will never be addressed by the local legislative bodies.
Of course it will be, because they came back and asked us to do this.
Right, they asked you all to do this, and that's what you're doing, is making a recommendation, coming up with these, deliberating, et cetera, et cetera.
So more than likely, they're gonna go along and at least.
Yeah.
So what's as soon as you can receive an application? Does it have to, after the second reading, or can you do it concurrently? While it's in that process, it's also in the map amendment process stage.
I'm not sure, at least after the first reading, probably after the second one. But they can have a meeting with me beforehand. In the local zoning regulations, everyone who is thinking about filing a rezoning application should come talk to me, so that I can tell them you don't have a chance at all, or, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn, have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.